Good afternoon, guys. Welcome you all to this year's Hacktoberfest, brought to you by Hack Club and MIT. This event is powered by DigitalOcean, Intel, and Dave.
So we have Piyush Gupta with us right now, like he's there within the chat. So yeah, Piyush, if you can unmute yourself, I guess then we can, participants are still adding, but still joining us. But we can, I guess, we can, start the conversation and start the entire thing. If you can unmute yourself, it will be very good.
Right. Okay. Great. Then thank you everybody for having me. Uh, Glad to be here. I guess there are a few of the people who are still coming up. Till
Yeah,
then, let me just share the screen.
yeah. Sure. Just let me stop my screen sharing and then wait,
Right.
wait a second. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I hope you all can see the screen now.
Yeah, it's pretty much visible. Yeah.
Perfect. Uh, just a sec. Awesome. Okay. So I guess we have got around what 33, 34 people. Shall I start or are we waiting for some more guys?
I guess we can wait for 2 more minutes or something. We can have a little casual chat till then.
All right.
Yeah. So if you can introduce yourself to the audience, it will be really great.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on a Sunday during the IPL season. Right. Highly appreciated. And I hope you all are safe at home, doing well. To give you a quick rundown of who I am, I work as a senior developer advocate with DigitalOcean. I started the job this year. In my previous avatar, I worked as a developer where I created platforms based on cloud native technologies, right, and also helped customers, move their workloads from legacy infrastructure to cloud-based infrastructure, right. It's been a good journey till now, right. I have been able to work through multiple metrics of the computer science world, right? Being from a developer to being a team lead to being a developer advocate to being a solution engineer, right? And there are a lot of things that have come through that. I'm also an active contributor to Kubernetes SIG Contribex project. You can find me on Kubernetes Slack. My handle there is Pensu91. You can also reach out to me on Twitter on the same handle. And if you are the kind of person, who would rather write down an email, please feel free to shoot one at pgupta@digitalocean.com. Right. With that, let me get started. Right. We are already running almost 15 minutes over. So today, basically, I will be talking to you about introduction to open source and Hacktoberfest, how Hacktoberfest came into the present form, and what all we have been doing, what are the new changes, and how you can contribute both to the Hacktoberfest and the open source, right? Uh, so let's start with what is Hacktoberfest, right? It is a month-long celebration of open source software, and it is primarily organized by my employer, that is DigitalOcean. And this year we are partnering with two other companies, Intel and Dev, right? And if the name is too cryptic, when I talk about a month-long celebration, I'm basically talking about October, right? Uh, Before going into what Hacktoberfest is and what it contains for you, I would like to talk a bit about open source, right? And open source, I'm sure most of you would be aware about it, but just to give you a refresher, open source basically means whenever you are creating a product, whenever you are developing a software, you also put out the code for that software, right? I mean, that's at the core of it, right? Now, open source is usually uh, also called as FOSS, that's free and open source software, or FLOSS, that's free and libre open source software. There's not much difference between these two terms, right? It's just it's more of a political difference. So if you are into that, I mean, you're free to use any of those terms, but essentially it means the same thing, right? Uh, and when you divide that part, right, when you talk about FOSS, there are two parts to it, right? One is the free part and one is the open source part, right? So open source part is pretty clear, right? You have got the product running, and whatever you are doing, whatever your product contains, whatever your software contains, the code is out in the open. It's open source, right? So whenever somebody buys that product, or whenever somebody uses that product, they are aware of what they are using, right? The controversial part is the free part, right? And when you say free, right, I mean, and that is one of the best example that we use in FOSS community to demonstrate, is it free in terms of free speech or in terms of free beer, right? And there is a difference, right? It might sound similar, that okay, freedom is freedom, right? But when you talk about freedom, freedom usually has a cost attached with it, right? And then the question becomes, who is actually paying for it, right? So when we talk in terms of free and open source software, we are not talking in terms of freedom in terms of prices, right? Nobody is going to actually bear the cost of it. Freedom is in terms of it's in more in philosophical term, right? Where it basically means you are free to do whatever you want to do, right? It's as simple as that. You have got the product, you have got the source code, and in the end of the day, you are free to do whatever you want to do with it, right? And that makes much more sense rather than having a free beer, right? Because when you have a free beer, there is somebody who is actually paying for it, right? And I'm not sure how many of you are legally allowed to drink, so don't take that example as a literal one, right? And just to give you a quick background of it, when computer started, when the journey of software started, right, there were a lot of companies who created awesome softwares, right, and they were very useful during that time, right, and they wanted to control who can see their code, who can see their proprietary intellectual property and all those things, right, and they came up with a lot of rules. They excuse me, they put up a lot of barriers on who can access the code, who can actually change it, who can look at it, right? And then a lot of people started patenting stuff, and a lot of governments created rules around those intellectual properties and all those things, right? However, this all changed when the legend of free and open source community, Mr. Richard Stallman, he came up with the GNU project in 1983, right? And he basically created the project, and created the first open source license that's called GPL, right? The General Public License. And he basically open sourced the whole thing, right? And that changed the course of history on how we actually develop open source software, right? Uh, he set up a free software foundation in 1985, right? Which basically guidelines how you can open source your project, how what all the steps you should follow, what are the things that you should take care when you are creating a open source community or creating an open source tool, right? And it has evolved a lot since then, right? I mean, I guess GPL is on version 3 nowadays, right? So there are a lot of new versions have come up. There are a lot of new things that have come up, right? There is MIT license, Apache license, BSD license, right? And all these things uh, provide some set of restriction, right? But in the end of the day, the main philosophy of free and open source software remains, and that's the idea is you have the product and you have the source code, right? The only restriction that these licenses put in is on how you can use that information, or how you can use that code, right? Some of these licenses, they allow you to redistribute the product, resell the product, right? Some of them actually put a restriction on that, okay, you can redistribute it but you can't sell it, right? Some of them put a restriction that you can merge it with the proprietary software, or let's say, I mean, there are a lot of various permutation and combination you can do with these, right? The whole thing is, the main philosophy, or the bottom line remains the same. uh, you should have the access, or your users, or the people who are actually paying for it, or even they are not paying for it, even they are using it, they should have access to the source code, plus they should be able to do that freely, right? Without, and then uh, one of the fundamental part is, one of the biggest example of this is Linux, right? uh, Linus Torvalds came in and he basically changed, and he basically took it to the next level, right? Free and open source software was famous, but when Linus came in and he open sourced Linux, right, the whole community actually rallied behind him, and they made it what it is today, right? Uh, right now, the next question is, why would you want to use open source? Right now, if you think from a common perspective, right, you have got a software, you have got a product, spend probably a lot of time to design it, to create features, right, to put it in a shape where it is today, right? Then why would you want to open source it? Why would you want to give it away, right? It sounds pretty, uh, how do you call it, counterintuitive, right? It doesn't make sense to do this, right? But there are benefits of doing open source, right? And one of the biggest benefit is it helps community in large, right? When you are using a proprietary software, it's more like a black box, right? And then the classic example is Microsoft Windows, right? And though, to their credit, Microsoft is huge in open source nowadays, right? They have completely transformed themselves. But if you look at the beginning, right, when you used to get those CDs where Windows image was burned, right? You just get the binary, you just get the final product. You don't know what is going on behind the scenes. You don't know how is that powered, what code is actually backing that particular product, right? Until unless Microsoft chooses to come out and tell you that, okay, this is what we are doing, right? And uh, this makes a lot of other people to copy the same thing pretty complicated, right? Now, if you want to contrast it with Linux, right? Linux kernel is open source, right? And there are a lot of Linux flavors uh, that can that can create their own operating systems, right? Be it Canonical, be it Red Hat, be it Fedora, be it Debian, right? Whoever, or maybe be it Kali Linux, right? There are a lot of people who can actually create their own offerings, their own products based on that open source software, and it creates a level playing field for everybody, right? Uh, and it's a simple math, it's a simple economics, right? When you have more supply, the prices drop, right? And it gives an easier access for everybody to that software, right? So that you don't have to shell out extra money, right? When you use a proprietary software, right, you probably have to pay for the support as well, because you don't know what's going inside that black box, right? Either you need to pay for the support to the company, or you need to hire somebody who can actually, who is an expert in that particular product and can help you out, right? So open source helps resolve all of these issues, right? It creates a level playing field for everybody. You solve a problem in an efficient way, I can use that and I can probably create something better, right? And it also makes you strive to do something better as well. Of course, no vendor lock-in. We talked about that. Anybody can, use the Linux kernel and create their own operating system on top of that, and sell it, right? And the benefit it provides is, in the end of the day, the kernel remains the same, right? The code is same, and you can see that, you can modify that, and you can interact it in any way, right? And uh, not exactly in terms of, let's say, the command that you can run on Ubuntu would work on Fedora as well, right? But most of them would. If you are talking just directly to the kernel, the system calls would actually work the same way, right? But that's not true for, let's say, a Mac OS or a Windows platform, right? So it gives users the flexibility to use whatever they want to use. They get to choose rather than getting bounded to the platform that their provider is giving them, right? And this is one of the code that is usually used. Given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow, right? When open source was gaining traction, one of the biggest concern to people was that, now your code is out in the open, right? And there are enough bad actors in the world who can actually take advantage of that. They can, uh, they can exploit the vulnerabilities, and they can, do many in the middle attacks, those kind of things, right? And they can basically harm your systems, right? But what these people actually forget is, uh, there are more good actors than bad actors in the world, right? The success of open source actually proves that when you put out your code, when you put your code out in the open, you actually get more scrutiny, right? There are hundreds or thousands of developers all around the globe who are actually looking at your code, and they can help you improve it rather than just exploiting it, right? Of course, there are going to be bad actors always who would try to exploit those vulnerabilities, but that's not true in all the cases, right? Uh, that doesn't happen all the time, right? There are good people as well who actually try to salvage the situation, right? And when enough people have actually looked at your code, right, your bugs they just become shallow, right? They literally don't matter, right? Because there are so many people collaborating, there are so many people contributing to the source code, right? One of them actually finds the issue and fixes it for you, right? Rather than contrasting with a proprietary software where you might not catch the bug, probably for a lots of years, right? Probably for a decade or for 2 decades, right? And that has happened in the past, right? Where when there were bugs in proprietary softwares and they couldn't fix it, right? I guess Nitin has raised hand. Is there any question? I'm not sure if that's how it works. Okay, I will move on. And if there is any question, please feel free to use the chat as well, and I can take them by the end, right? And it gives you flexibility for customization. If you're creating something, uh, I mean, let's say, you want to run something on different platforms and you want to create new features, you want to add new features, you have the source code in front of you. You can provide your feedback. You can even create that feature and add it to the code base, right? There is simple license management, right? When you are using proprietary software, there are a lot of licensing complications that you can't do this, you can't do that, and all those things. The FOSS licenses are pretty simple, right? As we discussed in the earlier slide, it is just the basic funda. I mean, there might be just some restriction on how you can resell or redistribute thing. That's almost all, right? And if a license starts to put more restriction, people usually avoid that, right? So they would want to go with a simpler thing where you can just get the source code and use it in whatever way you prefer, right? And it also provides an option for transparent audit, right? uh, when your code is closed, you don't know what exactly is happening inside that, right? And you wouldn't know how it might harm your systems, right? I mean, backdoors are pretty common in proprietary softwares, and there have been a lot of reports of having those backdoors in some popular tools, right? But that's pretty hard to do with open source softwares, because there are people who are actually looking at that code base on a regular basis, right? And they are actually able to catch that. Uh, uh, there's an organization that's called, so the organization that I work with in open source community, it's called CNCF, that's Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and they host a lot of open source projects, right? And they do a regular audit of the projects, right? And they keep putting out those reports, right? And now if you contrast it with the proprietary software world, that's pretty much impossible to do, because you don't even know what the code is, right? How would we be able to understand what exactly the audit report is going to be, right? So it's all not that bad. And one of the biggest concern that comes with using open source software is, how do you make money out of it, right? All said and done, right, you get a lot of benefits, but in the end of the day, it's about how you actually make money out of it, right? And the biggest example, or the biggest testament of if you can make money from open source software or not, is Red Hat, right? Their complete stack is based on open source software, right? Most of their stuff is open source, but they still make millions of dollars of revenue, right, year after year. And the way they do it is, they don't charge for the product, they charge actually for the services and their expertise, right? So you don't have to always charge for the product, you can also charge for your skills that you have, right? And that basically comes in forms of doing bug fixing, providing enterprise supports, right? And all those other things, right? Moving on, that's what I wanted to give you a brief view about open source, right? Let's get back to Hacktoberfest, right? So to give you an history about Hacktoberfest, right? We started this program in 2014, right? 6 years back, and at that time we had 676 signups, right? And compare it to the last year where we had more than 130,000 signups, right? So during the span of 6 years, we have seen a huge growth. And it's not just in number of signups, it's also in number of pull requests, right? Starting from 49,000 to more than 480,000. And the number of people who have actually completed the challenge. In 2014, we have around 500 people, and in 2019, we had more than 60,000 people completing the challenge, right? And Hacktoberfest has evolved a lot, not just in terms of uh, the signups and pull requests and total completions, right? But also in terms of the rules that we have had. When we started this in 2014, the first edition, we had a rule that you have to make 50 commits to a GitHub repo, right? And I mean, not just the PRs, right? Those should be actually merged PR, or basically there should be a number of commits, right? You're probably one PR can have more than one commits, but in the end of the day, the idea was there should be 50 commits to your name, right? And probably that was the reason that we saw, a lower turnout. But then we realized the Hacktoberfest potential. It's not just about, making 50 commits in a month is probably an easy for an open source veteran, the person who has been doing all of this stuff for, quite some time. But it won't be as easy for a person who is actually just starting with open source, right? So we realized that potential, and we reformed the program from 2015 in a way where we started counting just PRs, right? How many number of pull requests you're sending, right? And we started with, I guess, 5, then it became 6, and then we put it down to 4, right? And that's the current version that has been going, I guess, at least until last year, right? And if you look at these charts, right, they basically tell the whole story of how Hacktoberfest has grown, right? And if you look at the number of pull requests, right, we have got more than 480,000 pull requests, right? And that's in just 1 month, and those are the and that's the kind of momentum we are providing to open source, right? All of the Hacktoberfest provides to open source, so it's not just about uh, one person creating 4 PRs, right? When the community comes together, when everybody starts sending those PRs, it basically creates a massive surge of contribution, and that helps the whole community. Everyone, just give me a sec. Right. No. So these are just a few of the diagram, a few of the photos. We have scene of Hacktoberfest coming all over the world, right? And this basically highlights one more important thing that I want to talk about. Hacktoberfest is not just about creating those signups and sending those pull requests, or marking that completion or getting that T-shirt. It's more about the community, right? It's the way community comes together and work together, right? Open source is all about collaboration, right? Now, think of it. We have had testimonials where people from different background, different skill set, people who have never made any contribution to any open source project whatsoever, right? We have seen teams building inside companies, right? Companies that have traditionally been closed source, right? There have been people who are actually advocating for open source, right? And all that change has come. Uh, Oktoberfest has provided that platform that can actually bring that change, right? Uh, I, I don't think I have any pictures from 2014, so we start this from 2015, right? And moving on, right? So let's talk about Oktoberfest 2020. That's about this year. Right. Again, it's an October long celebration of open source software, right? And what it provides is it's a platform where individuals learn, contribute, meet other developers, and contribute for pull requests to earn a limited edition T-shirt, right? Now, I know most of you might be thinking that the key part of this sentence is the T-shirt, right? Trust me, that's not. The key part of that sentence is learning, right? Contributing and meeting other developers, right? That's what make Hacktoberfest what it is today, right? You get to learn a lot of things. You get to contribute to open source software, right? You got to contribute to projects that you like, that you might be using probably in your daily use, or probably in your organization, or probably in your hobby project, right? and you also get to meet developers all across the globe, right? Probably you wouldn't talk to them if it wasn't for Hacktoberfest, but you get a chance to interact with them, to learn from them, and everybody has, you know, some set of skills, right? So when you talk to different people, you understand those skills and you try to learn from them, right? This year we have support for all virtual events. You know, given the situation that we are living in nowadays, it's not possible to have, you know, physical events or, you know, in-person events, right? That has been, uh, I mean, you know, it is what it is, right? So we have started with the all virtual events, right? Like this one, and we had our DigitalOcean official kickoff, right? And there are events happening all across the globe, right? The one thing that we did different this year was the September, right? So uh, the month of September, we termed it as September, right? I know our marketing team is very high on puns, right? So the idea behind September was, since the way we have been seeing, there is a lot of surge in pull requests, in contributions, in signups with every year. We wanted to give a month time to project owners and maintainers, just to get them on board, right? They can create a pretty, you know, straightforward contribution guide. They can set up right issues. They can get their, basically they can get their repos ready for contribution, so that when 1st October hits, people can actually go ahead and start contributing to those projects without much difficulties, right? Because maintaining an open source software is a huge task, right? And we understand that maintainers uh, might need some time to get ready to get that many contributions all together, right? So that was September. And again, as I said, we are having all virtual events. So we created a robust event kit and we updated a lot of resources, right? And these resources basically help everybody, starting from the developers to the maintainers and to the repo owners and everybody, right? Now, and this is the most part of this presentation, right? If you're not paying attention till now, that's okay. But do pay attention to this part, right? Because this is basically going to help you with what you do with Hacktoberfest, right? And we have created some new rules for this year, right? Since the program is evolving, since the project is evolving, we are also learning with, what are all the loopholes or what are all the other things that we can close and how we can make it beneficial for everybody, right? So and then these rules came in yesterday, like yesterday morning. So I'm not sure if all of you have seen this, but if you haven't, here is just a rundown. Uh, the first thing is that we have made Hacktoberfest opt-in this year, right? So until last year, when you register with Hacktoberfest, you can actually you could have contributed to any of the open source repository, right? You can go to any GitHub repository and you can just send a PR, right? And if it was a valid PR, it would be counted towards completing your challenge, right? But this year we have given an option where repositories have to actually opt in if your PR has to be counted there, right? And how they opt in, it's via putting a Hacktoberfest topic on their repository, right? So if any repository has opt-in for Hacktoberfest, you can basically go to that GitHub page, and in the about section, you will see a lot of topics, right? And if Hacktoberfest is there, that means that particular repository is eligible for your Hacktoberfest challenge, right? Basically, you can send your PRs to that particular repository. And now, when you send that PR, the PR has to be in one of these three states, right? It's supposed to be either merged, right? And if it's merged, it's well and good. And we understand that in some projects, PRs might take some time to get merged, right? Some big project like Linux, Kubernetes, right? The PR discussions actually goes on for months, right? Where before maintainers actually finalize that, okay, this is a good PR and this should be merged, right? So if your PR is not merged, it should be either be approved by a maintainer or it should have a Hacktoberfest accepted label, right? In some projects, there are more than one maintainer that have to approve the PR to get merged, right? I mean, you just need to get approval from one, but even if that doesn't happen, right? You can request the maintainers to just put that Hacktoberfest accepted label, right? And then you can keep working on it and you can keep merging it, right? So the third change is earlier the review period was 7 days. So we have doubled it now to 14 days to give maintainers more time to look at the PRs and to make sure that, those are all valid stuff, right? And the deadline to do all of this is November 1, right? So by November 1, all of your PRs should either be merged. Right? Now, the first thing is obviously they should be in an Hacktoberfest opt-in repo. The second point is either they should be merged, they should be either or they should be approved by a maintainer, or they should have an Hacktoberfest accepted label. Right? So just keep that in mind whenever you are sending a PR to any of the repositories. Right? Moving on, right? And the biggest benefit, right? The biggest motivation for people to take part in Hacktoberfest, right? That's the T-shirts. So this year we have, a dark and light theme going on. So if you look at the website, also we have the dark theme and the light theme, right? So we also have two options available for the T-shirt. You can either get the navy blue one or you can get the white one, depending on what side of the spectrum you are. And also we are going environment friendly this year. We are trying to reduce, our carbon footprint, right? So these T-shirts are manufactured and then get shipped to all over the world, right? So just to be, or just to offset the carbon footprint, we are giving you an option of choosing a tree, right? When you complete the challenge, you can either get the T-shirt or you can choose to plant a tree, right? So we have partnered with an NGO called Tree Nation. And if you choose the plant a tree option, we will donate to them on your behalf and they will basically plant a tree, right? So choose whatever option fits you better. Right? And as we discussed, Hacktoberfest as a program has been growing, right? Every year we start getting more communities and more organizations that actually want to be part of the program, right? We are still just 7 years old, but still it has made a good presence in the community worldwide, right? DigitalOcean is the organizing partner for Hacktoberfest. But other than that, till last year, we only used to have one name partner, that was Dev. But this year we have two name partners, that's Intel and Dev. Intel is, pretty big name in open source, right? They contribute a lot of code. Dev is a platform for developers. And other than that, we have got some of the partners. These are sponsorship partners, Vonage, JetBrains, Circle CI, and of course, GitHub, right? And other than that, we have got a lot of community partners like Mattermost, Indeed, MLH, right? And they're basically helping us with the community efforts. Right. Now, why Hacktoberfest, right? Why are we doing this? Why do we keep organizing it year after year? What benefit it actually provides to the community, right? And one of the things that we have seen in our 7 years of experience, when you give freedom for people, or when you give platform for people to collaborate, right, for them to come together and talk to each other and create something new, right? They have created awesome stuff, right? In the past, there have been a lot of projects that have actually come out of Hacktoberfest, right, where people just collaborated, right? And it might be for their internal uses, or it might be for a public project, it might be a new programming language, it might be a new wellness tool, it could be anything, right? But there have been a lot of amazing tools, right, that Hacktoberfest has created, right? It creates a learning opportunity. It also creates a lot of learning opportunities for new people, for the new contributors who are at the beginning level of their open source journey. Right? It also gives a chance to repo owners and project maintainers to invite new community members, right? And these community members sometimes become long-time contributors, right? They keep growing, they become regular contributors and probably maintainers, and then so on and so forth. It also helps you get real world experience, right? So when you're working on a proprietary software, right, you have got 20 engineers in your team and your code is basically being managed by, let's say, 4 people, 5 people, that's all, right? You don't get the exposure of working with, let's say, thousands of developers all across the globe. Hacktoberfest provides you that platform to work, right? And of course, I mean, we have been, I mean, that is one of the biggest use case. We introduce people to free and open source software, right? Oktoberfest has been doing it for ages, right? And the contribution is not just about code, right? Just make sure. I mean, you don't have to just contribute the code, right? You can contribute in the documentation. You can contribute with the test cases. You can contribute with the, you know, improving the feature list. Probably bug triage. It could be anything, right? Just don't limit it to the code, right? And we have had lot of testimonials where people have actually got jobs through Oktoberfest, right? Once they start contributing, right? Let's say you start contributing to, let's say Kubernetes, right? And you get pretty good at it. You start understanding the role, and you start growing in the ladder of contributor and maintainer and like that. Now, once let's say there's a company who is using Kubernetes and they're looking for a Kubernetes expert, right? Or let's say there's a company who actually owns Kubernetes, right? Something like Google. They find those people out, right? And they actually value those skills because you are already versed in that project and you are also versed in open source community, right? That helps a lot of people, get placed in those companies as well. And as I said, it helps you with your contribution ladder, right? A lot of contributors actually eventually become maintainers, right? They can up their game during Oktoberfest. Right, and why DigitalOcean does that, right? I mean, what's in it for us other than, of course, the marketing part, right? One of our core values at DigitalOcean is our community is bigger than just us, right? And that's something that we really believe in. DigitalOcean's tech stack is based on open source softwares, right? All of our products, you start from the servers to our databases, to our load balancers, to our managed Kubernetes, to our firewalls. Everything is based on open source tech, right? And we love to contribute back to the community, right? Because what we believe is for our sustainable growth, right? And for our growth, the sustainability of open source matters a lot, right? Because that has helped us to reach where we are, right? I mean, there are a lot of cloud players all around the globe, right? And these are big players with heavy pockets, right? And they can choose to invest in buying and developing proprietary softwares. But for companies like DigitalOcean, right, who are just growing in that world, right? Open source helps a lot uh, by lowering their cost of initial investment, right? You can just use open source softwares, and you know you can start building on top of that. Excuse me. Right. Now, since we are talking about DigitalOcean, I will just give you a quick overview of the company as well. Right. DigitalOcean is a cloud infrastructure and software services company. Right. We basically provide infrastructure for you where you can run your application, where you can run your code, right? I mean, you can run your workloads, right? We started in 2012. That's 8 years back in New York City. We've got 12 data centers in 8 regions, be it, US, Canada, Europe, Asia, right? We've got more than 500,000 active customers in 75 plus countries, right? And we are not that big an organization. We have got a little over than 500 employees, right? And we have been able to raise $500 million in funding, both equity and debt included, right? And one of the things that we especially feel proud of, right, about DigitalOcean is our tutorial site, right? As I said, right, we focus a lot on contributing back to the open source, right? And in that case, or in that scenario, we have a tutorial, we have got a blog site, we have got a question and answer site, right? Where we encourage our team members internally and externally, external contributors as well to write down their blogs and articles, right? And no matter what level of tech you are working at, there is a pretty good chance that you would find relevant DigitalOcean tutorial for you, right? So do check that out if you haven't found that already. Right? That's how I found out about DigitalOcean. I was stuck on a problem and I Googled about it, and DigitalOcean as a result keep coming up again and again, and I got to know, okay, they're good. They're one of the good guys. Right? Now, coming back to Oktoberfest, one of the concern that I have usually seen coming up from people is Hacktoberfest really for me? Like, is it something that I should actually contribute to, right? And the only entry barrier we have for Hacktoberfest is you should be curious about open source. That's all, right? No matter at what level of your open source journey you are at, right? You might be a beginner, somebody who has actually never made a pull request, right? This might be your first time, and for that we have got a lot of resources. We have got events like these. We have got a lot of partners who keep training people on how you can get started with open source world, right? And even if you are new to tech in general, right? I was an event, I guess yesterday, and I had two people there who were from finance background, right? And this was the first time they were doing Hacktoberfest, and they are starting to learn programming now, right? I guess after a couple of years of their experience in finance, right? So, and those kind of people are also encouraged, right? There is something for these people. They can find good beginner issues, right? They can find help in a lot of forums, including the events, and on the Hacktoberfest website as well, right? And if you're a contributor who is already contributing to an open source project, right? Hacktoberfest provides an extra motivation or an additional motivation for you to basically up your game. You can start contributing more, right? And you can basically become probably a maintainer as well. And if you are already a maintainer, if you own a project, right, running an open source project is a, um, what do you call it? I mean, there's a lot of work involved in maintaining an open source project, right? You have to do a lot of things, and the project maintainers, they are always looking for help, right? Hacktoberfest helps you build that community, right? Whenever you get a new contributor, you can engage with them, you can chat with them, you can understand what their aspirations are, where do you want to take this project, and if that fits well, you can get another helping hand for your project as well, right? So Hacktoberfest basically helps you in every level of your open source journey. Right. I want to talk a bit about my Hacktoberfest journey as well. I started with Hacktoberfest 2 years back, right? Got two t-shirts to prove that. And this was my first PR I sent. It was, and I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, it was sent on 1st October 2018, right? And I was learning Golang at that point of time, and I wanted to contribute to a cloud native project. I found a good project called OpenEBS, and OpenEBS basically provides a storage solution for Kubernetes platform, right? So, and I like the community. I interacted with them. I got to know that they would be participating in Hacktoberfest. That's the first time I had heard about Hacktoberfest, and I offered my help that I would like to contribute, and the maintainers are pretty friendly. They told me that okay, this is the issue you can work on, and just hold on to it until 1st October, and once we kickstart that, you can start contributing, right? And so that's how I got started, right? And it's been 2 years since I have been contributing to that project, right? And recently I was promoted as a maintainer for that project, right? So that's how you grow, right? It was not like a one-time thing that when I went and created PR and just disappeared, right? I was my contributions were there for a longer period of time. I kept talking to the community. I kept helping them, right? And it's not just about me becoming a maintainer. Of course, that's a good thing that helps me grow. But it also helps me improve my skills, right? My code was, there were a lot of things that I was doing wrong, and this basically helped me, grow in a better way. Right? That brings me to talk about Hacktoberfest values. Uh, and this is something that everybody should follow, right? It is listed on the website as well. And one of the first thing is everybody is welcome, right? When you are working with open source tools, there are going to be people from different backgrounds, from different skill sets, at different level of seniority, right? Make sure you are kind to everyone, right? Because this is a community where everybody should feel welcome, right? The second one, and that's probably the most important value of all, the quantity is fun, but quality is key, right? And I cannot stress this enough, right? Hacktoberfest is not about sending those 4 PRs, right? Just try to understand. Just try to understand that, right? uh, you can send those 4 PRs, but if they are not meaningful changes, if they are not changing the project to a better form, right? Uh, if they don't help you with your skills, right? Those are just a waste of time, right? And you wouldn't want that, right? Hacktoberfest helps you grow, helps maintainers in a way where they can, come together to create something amazing, right? But if you start sending PRs with, just one single word change in a README, or, one line change, or I'm not saying those are not valid contributions, right? There might be a genuine typo that you are trying to fix, right? But just think about how exactly it helps you, right? Or how exactly it helps that project, right? If you have some, whenever you are creating a PR, just make sure it has a meaningful impact on that, for that project, right? And third part is it's a short-term action and a long-term impact, right? So I guess it pretty much makes sense, right? It's not though it's called Hacktoberfest, though it's an October-long celebration, but it doesn't have to be limited to October, right? Don't do it in a way where you just send 4 PRs in October and then you just get disappeared from that repository. Whenever you are sending a PR, make sure you are looking at or you are doing it to a project where you can commit yourself to be there for the long term, right? Where the talk to the maintainers, right? Talk to the project owners, talk to the other contributors, right? Try to understand the vision of the project, what is the roadmap, and if it matches your interest, if you can see yourself being committed to that for a long time, then start contributing, right? Don't just do it for the sake of the t-shirt, right? By the way, t-shirt is important, and I don't want to downplay that. Right. And okay, enough of the introduction part, right? How do we actually get started, right? The first thing first is you need a GitHub account, right? I assume you have that already, but if you don't, you can just go to github.com. It's pretty straightforward onboarding, and you can create one account. Next step is you have to register on hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com with your GitHub account. Get familiarity with GitHub. How do you create PRs? How do you respond to issues? How do you make changes to the code base and all those things, right? There are a lot of getting started videos available. There are a lot of getting started guides, right? There are a lot of resources available on Hacktoberfest website as well, right? The next thing is search for repos with Hacktoberfest topic, right? You have to, and there's a pretty, GitHub has a good search functionality. It's not best in the world, but it gets the work done. You can look for repos that have opted in for the Hacktoberfest program. And you can also filter by language, right? You could be a Python developer or a C developer or a JavaScript developer, right? Depending on what your flavor is, you can just filter it out and you can start looking at projects, right? I guess last I checked, we had almost 10 or 12,000 repositories that have already opted in for Hacktoberfest, right? Across all the languages, right? So I'm sure whatever you have been trying to do, or whatever you have been, whatever language you want to work with, you will find a repo with that, right? And then you make 4 pull requests to that repository between 1 to 31st October, right? Uh, and just make, again, I want to reiterate that, but don't just send any PR, right? Look at open issues, talk to maintainers. If you find there is something missing in that project, or if there is something that you can actually contribute to, right? Open an issue, right? Chat with maintainers and chat with other contributors. Try to understand that how you can improve that, and then create and send your PRs, right? Again, don't make it a race that okay, today's 1st October by 12 p.m. I have to send 4 PRs. That's not going to work. That's not going to be good for anyone, right? And that's why we have the option of avoiding spam PRs, right? So we have seen cases where people have just sent, making a one-line change or a one-letter change, those kind of things, right? And that basically doesn't help anyone, right? Open source is a community, right? And when you are a community, uh, you have to behave in a certain way, right? So do not spam, right? If there is a PR or there is a repository that is not following Hacktoberfest code of conduct, it would be ineligible to participate. And we are also implementing a system where, if if a next maintainer, or if there is a if a maintainer marks your PR as spam, right? And you are doing too much of spamming, if you have too many PRs with the spam or the invalid tag, you might be disqualified for Oktoberfest, right? And not for this year, for all the Oktoberfest to come, right? So you don't want that to happen, right? I'm not trying to scare you or anything, but just be responsible about where you are sending your PRs to and what exactly it has, right? Just make sure whatever changes you are sending has a meaningful impact both for you and for the project as well, right? I guess, yeah, that's all I had. Thank you for being a brilliant audience. You can get in touch either on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on email, whatever the way you prefer. And if you would like to try out DigitalOcean, uh, you can go to the link, that's do.co/Oktoberfest 100, and you can sign up. You will get $100 credits. You can use our products for free, at least as long as they charge $100. Uh, you want to use the virtual servers, you want to use the databases, you want to use Kubernetes, completely your choice. And if there is anything, you can just go back and uh, if there is anything, if there is any questions, any concerns, you can just give us a feedback on either any of the methods mentioned here, right? So I guess I'm not sure if I have some time to answer some of the questions, or if you have any questions, I mean, please feel free to ask. Right. So I have a question from Anune, 4 valid pull requests and you get the t-shirt or an option to plant a tree. Right. And when I say valid pull request, the thing that you need to remember is it has to be in a Hacktoberfest opt-in repository, right? And another thing is uh, you can, how to put it? It has to either be merged or it has to be approved by a maintainer, or it should have an Hacktoberfest accepted label, right? As long as these things happen, that's a valid pull request. And once you do 4 valid pull requests, you can either get the t-shirt or you can get the option to plant a tree. Right. I guess I have a question from Satvik. How would you popularize the concept of OSS and contribution to it across all engineering fields in India? Right. And basically that's what Oktoberfest is designed to do, right? We want to get the idea of coding out of just the computer science part, right? And that's why we have had that's one of the reasons we have had so much success, right? Let's say as I was saying, right, yesterday I was at an event, right, and I was talking to this person, and he has worked in finance for, I guess, 4 years. And what he realized was that he was using lot of open source tools, right? And he always had that inhibition, that how do I get started, or how do I understand this, right? But the tool that he was using was taking part in Hacktoberfest this year, so he thought, okay, let me try and dive deep into that. And they had a lot of some getting started videos and how to understand these things, right? And that helped him get on board, right? He's planning to send his first PR. It's not going to be a big change. It's not that he's going to add a new feature to that project. He will basically be making a documentation change. But what gives him confidence, or what gives him benefit, is he understands how that product works now, right? And that makes him better in his job, right? So I guess that's one of the pitch that I give to all the people who are not from computer science background, is you will eventually use an open source tool, right? Why not just get familiar with it, right? And once you do it, there is an incentive for you. You get a t-shirt out of it, right? So it's not just that you're really doing it just for the sake of doing it, right? You get to know the product better where you're working in, and you also get some incentive out of it, right? And probably never know, you can make it even better, right? Whatever issues you are facing with it. I guess Anune has a question. Do you have the license? Do you have to get the license through some process, or you just add the simple line? So there is a file. So basically, all these licenses have a license file. You can go to just any open source GitHub repo that is supporting that license, and you can just copy that license out. That's all the process you need. You don't need to buy it, or you don't need to, what do you call it? I mean, you don't need to register it or anything, right? I mean, it's just a license file that you have to add to your code. Okay, Aniket has a question. How do you compare the Indian OSS made in India with the international one? Right, so there is no, and that's the beauty of open source, right? I mean, there is no comparison of made in India versus the international part, because it's a global thing, right? Everybody can look at your code and everybody can contribute to your code, right? There are a lot of, and I mean, when you talk about the international OSS projects, right? I mean, that has been done by a lot of Indian developers itself, right? So if they were in India, that would have been made in India, right? So there is virtually, I mean, the kind of world we are in, there is virtually no difference between this, right? Though I would agree. I mean, I'm not sure if you have been following the news about Hacktoberfest. It's just a difference between the what I call it, the number of population, right? We have got the highest population, so we have got the highest population of developers as well, right? And it's all a percentage game, right? uh, you know 50% of 10 is 5 and 50% of 100 is 50, right? So 50 would, though the percentages are same, but the 50 number would always be bigger than 5, right? So if you would look at from that point of view, if you look at the bad actors, it would be more, but if you look at the good actors, it would be more as well, right? The only thing I would say is we have the higher number of contributions, right? In both the cases, right? Be it on the good one, be it on the bad one, right? But in the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because whenever your project becomes popular, it's not only the Indian people who are contributing to it, or not the international people who are contributing to it, right? Everybody contributes, and in the end of the day, it reaches at the similar level, right? Which any open source project should adhere to, right? What else? Right. Thanks, Anurag. Yeah, I mean, we have great developers here in India and outside as well, right? So it's just a numbers game. That's all.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Piyush. Yeah, and thanks a lot for all these insights that you have given for the Hacktoberfest open source world that we are living in right now. You totally pointed it, in perfect manner. Like, the this virtual world that we are living in, it has crossed all the boundaries.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for and providing all the insights towards the Hacktoberfest, the good practices of open source, like how not to spam, because spamming has been a great kind of issue right now, as if you all follow the news headlines or something like that. So thanks a lot for that. And after that, uh, to give you a little to all the audience a little technical aspects, on the Git and GitHub. So we have a little 15 to 20 minutes of workshop, so that we can showcase them our own public repos, which we have provided them for to contribute, and how they can start with their first contribution and stuff. So we would like to start with that. And thanks a lot, Piyush, again and again. So thanks a lot for coming, and in providing lots of insight for everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And I guess I have an AMA at 5 p.m. So I guess I will
Yeah,
see you again at
yeah,
5 p.m.
definitely. So, guys, we have an AMA with Piyush and Pranjal, and we'll ask. You can ask actually almost any question with these guys. These are developers, like these are all round developers. We don't have to stick with open source only. We can go from Linux to Kubernetes, or wherever the questions will lead us to. Yeah, thanks a lot, Piyush. And guys, just hang on. Satvik will be joining in, and he'll be giving you a quick introduction to Git and GitHub, and show you a quick introduction how you can submit your own first PR. He'll gonna showcase you the entire thing, maybe in the CLI and both in the graphical. I'm not sure of it. Satvik, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Cool. I'll just share my screen. Yeah, can you see?
Yeah, it's visible. Okay.
Okay.
Satvik, over to you. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. So I'll show you how to create your first PR and how to proceed with Hacktoberfest. So first up, just go to github.com. I hope you all have a GitHub account. Then just type Hacktoberfest. Right. So you can go to Hacktoberfest. You can check topics. And yeah, you can see this here. So you can work on these repos as well, but we at Hack Club NMIT also have made a few repos. as you can see here, they're also tagged with Hacktoberfest. If you work with these repos within the end of the session, you'll get bonus swags from Hack Club and MIT as well. So I'll show you how to work on this repo first. So first of all, what you have to do is you have to fork the repo, right? Forking means it will make a copy to your own GitHub account, right? So you just fork it. Yeah, so you can see if you want to verify it is forked, just check github.com/ your account name should be here instead of Hack Club and MIT. That's when you're sure that it is forked. So what we'll do now is just code and click this to copy the URL to the Git. Yeah. So now go on your local machine, go to some folder that you've created, right click, git bash. So this is a terminal window where you can perform all Git operations here, right? So now we'll clone the repository onto our local machine, git clone and paste it in. I think some machines, Control V doesn't work, so make sure to use Shift Insert instead, right? So now this will clone here. Yeah. So now that it has been cloned, you can see here. Yeah. Okay. Now we'll be running a few commands. I'll just show it to you. I'll be presenting these at the end of the slide as well. So yeah, these are a few commands. This is all you need literally. Just you have to execute these 6 commands and do the other steps, right? So we'll continue with this. Now that you're here, just change the directory. So this was called ARM Geniuses. Yeah, and as you can see, currently we're working on the master branch. Now I'll talk a little bit about branching. See, now in GitHub, what is the thing is, now what I copied is this one, this bubble here, common base. So whatever changes you make usually in PRs, you do it on a separate branch, right? That means it doesn't conflict with the main progress changes made by the owner of the repo. So whatever changes that you will make on the branch here. So for that, we'll have to create a separate branch, and every change we make will be made here, right? And if the maintainer approves of your change, he will merge it back, means combining it back with the main flow, right? So this is how Git branching works. So let us start with Git branch then. So for that, you have to do git checkout -b, and you can call your branch whatever you want. I'll just call it new branch, right? Yeah, and you can see it switched to a new branch here. Okay. Then one more thing we have to do is we have to link whatever repository we are doing with this thing, the main repo that we cloned it from, right? So let me go back to my this thing. Yeah, so I'll just open this. Yeah, so this was the main repo. So we have to tell GitHub that we are working with this repo. So just copy this link here. Yeah. So now in the terminal, I think I'll just increase the size a bit. I hope it's more visible now. Yeah. So now I'll just type git remote add upstream, and then you paste the link in there. Yeah. So now you have linked your project with the I think a lot of chat. Yeah. So now that we have linked both of them, it's very simple. These 2 steps are done. Now make whatever changes you want to make, like say this about.html, right? So say you have to change color or button, whatever changes you have to make all the changes you want. It'll all be done on your local machine. Okay. Yeah. So once you have done with all the changes, right? I'll just make a change here just to show you. Just call this PNG instead. Yeah. So I have made that change now. Now let's just take git status, right? So if you type git status, this will show you that you made some changes, and it will show exactly where you made. Now I made the change in about.html, right? You can do this just to verify. Now after this, you just do git add -a. Now this will add it to a immediate intermediate area, right? So you can keep all the changes here, and you can once you're sure that these are the changes you want to do, is to git commit, right? And put a message like by -m made changes about .html, right? So you put the commit here, right? And it'll say one file changed. And finally, just to git push, git push. No, one sec. Sorry, I did this year. Okay. In the origin, it will automatically be saved. So yeah, git push origin, and the branch name is new branch. Yeah. So this will take a while. It will upload soon. Yeah. So that's done. I'll just go back. Yeah. So as you can see in my project, it's now when I go back to GitHub, it's showing this thing. New branch has recent pushes less than a minute ago. Now, if you get this dialog, that means you're on the right track. Okay. After this, what you have to do is just click compare and pull, right? And then you can write a description about what changes you made and everything like that, other descriptions, and just click create pull request. This will send a message to the maintainer that you have made certain changes and you have to wait for approval. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'll just show you the commands. You can take a screenshot of this if you want.
Satvik, can you show them how to compare across folks?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, the compare across folks, like having pull request on original repo. This is on this repo only, no?
No, this is my repo here.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, na, like if you will show them how to pull request on original repo, yeah, just go to pull request and compare across folks.
Okay, yeah. Here, yeah, this will also show, but it's pretty much the same thing. You can do that. You compare and pull request, right? Yeah, here also compare and pull request. Yeah, so yeah, this should send it to the maintainer as well. So yeah, any other doubts? I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thanks, Satvik. I guess, guys, we can share you with some, detailed documentation and how to proceed with Git. Like Anshul has shared some link to how to get started with Git. So it's pretty basic. It's not about the process, like how to do the pull request and all. It's pretty simple in that aspect. But what are the changes that you are going to make over here? Like the Satvik has just made a dummy change. But Satvik, if you can just look at the issues, what the issues that we have over there, if you can show it to the people, what kind of issues are available over there, and then those kind of issues, guys, you have to solve it. Like if you are comfortable with basic web, like this project is basic on web development and stuff, like HTML, CSS, and JS. Mostly it use that only, but there are if you just search with Hacktoberfest, there are thousands of other issues available on the GitHub, which ranges from documentation to a very to a very complex issues that you have to solve, like from unit testing to everything else. So yeah, so like if you can just go into the Flutter one, Satvik, the one you created. If you can explain the issues over there, that will be good. Satvik, can you hear me?
Oh, I was on mute. Sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you know?
Yeah.
One sec. Yeah. So as Anurag said, what I made was dummy changes. Actually, if you scroll down here, you'll find the readme.md file. Here you have actual issues listed here. So make sure to solve these ones, right? And yeah, we have other repositories as well. That was the web one. Here we have a Flutter app built in. This has a few issues. There's a COVID dashboard Flutter app. So we have a few issues. If you're familiar with Flutter, I would highly encourage you to jump into this. This is a very nice challenge for you to do. So yeah,
Can
we
yeah.
yeah,
Satik, can you
and
go to the
yeah,
issues tab?
yeah, and one more thing I wanted to list before that is if there are tasks in increasing order of difficulty. So the harder tasks to do, the more swags you'll be entitled to, right? So just keep that in mind as well. And yeah, let's go to issues here. Yeah, so here are the issues. You can choose an issue to work on here and just mention it. You can see like create new screen and stuff.
So guys, mostly the issues that has a Hacktoberfest tag with them, if you solve them, there are those issues, and if your pull request get merged on over those issues, then it will be considered as a valid pull request. And if you solve our the projects that we have listed on GitHub on our GitHub organization, then we'll send you out Hack Club stickers along with that extra along with the t-shirts that you're gonna get from DistilOcean. We'll send you out extra Hack Club stickers as well. Or okay, one question: are these issues serious or just made for the purpose of Fest? Mostly these repos we have created mostly for the purpose of Fest. These are the projects that are the club members have created on their own. So they specifically put these projects for the sake of Fest and then they have created some issues. There are some cases like where they wanted some enhancement in their application, so they put issues against that as well. But if you just generally go to the Hack Club NMIT, the repo, there you will gonna see like the other projects that we currently do, like our Hack Club NMIT website, resource booklet, and other stuff. Even if you found these projects also interesting, you can also contribute over there. So if you found your peer, the pull request interesting, then will definitely allow you to contribute towards those repos as well. And we'll give it a tag at the end, Hacktoberfest accepted.
Yeah, so to get started, just you can log into GitHub/HackClub. I'll just post it in the chat. Yeah.
And guys, if I think within the mail you guys have seen it, like if you have to go to Hacktoberfest, I'm not sure about what the site is. Can someone go to the Hacktoberfest where we have to log in, where everyone has to log in first? Wait. Satvik, can you go to the Hacktoberfest login site, where one has to first sign in with their GitHub, and then it keeps a track of all the pull requests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, guys, this is the step 0. This is must required. You have to go to the hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. There you have to sign in with your GitHub, so that whatever the pull request, whatever the activities that you're gonna do, or whatever the pull request that you're gonna create within this span of October, it will get they will gonna keep a track, like Hacktoberfest using their GitHub API, like they're gonna keep a track of yours. Yeah, this is the site. You just have to go to start hacking, and then you have to do a simple sign in with GitHub, authorize Hacktoberfest, so that they can have read out your personal data, and whenever you submit a pull request, it just there are some do's and don'ts available of Hacktoberfest. So whenever the first pull request will be given by submitted by you, it will just gonna keep a track of it over here. You can, and once done, you can always keep a track of it. Like once the pull request, after the pull request is done, there are 14-day period. Earlier it was 7, as Piyush told, they increased the time period. So after 14 days, the pull request will gonna get mature, and then you'll be eligible for your t-shirts or other stickers that Hacktoberfest give out every year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You just acknowledge these two, and if you click start hacking, you'll be linked with Hacktoberfest, and you can be eligible for their swags.
Okay. Thanks guys for joining in. For the next sessions, we have Sayak and then Pranjal with introduction to Rust and Sayak with the TensorFlow Hub. And at the 5 p.m. we have a AMA with Piyush and Pranjal Paliwal. So the upcoming sessions are really good. If you wanna get more interested towards on a a specific technology that the speakers are talking about, and if you want to have one-on-one interactions with those guys, Saik is pretty good with the. He's pretty active with the this machine learning and deep learning community, and same goes for Pranjal. So see you guys then. The link is same for all the Zoom meetings. You just have to come at the right time. Whenever the next session is gonna start, you all have the agenda with you. Even just 5 minutes before the event, we'll send out an email to you guys. And my MLH and MLH. No, it's actually the same. It's under the MLH only. So like once you create account over MLH, you can use it throughout their services. MLH. Actually, my MLH is the API, which you guys can use it on your website to do the sign up and stuff like that. MLH is the site. Yeah, the same account goes for both of them. Even if you can host your own event just by having that MLH account with you, like MLH localhost and all within your colleges or within your community. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining. We are ending this session right now, and after that, I think the next session is at 2, right, Satvik?
Yeah.
Yeah. So next session is starting at 2 p.m. See you guys then.